everyone, this is Christopher Brower here with Daily Motor, and today we're driving the 2022 Subaru Outback Wilderness. This is Subaru's new line of cars called Wilderness. You'd never know, would you? Because there's barely any badges on the car to tell you such things. But anyways, this is it. It's finished in geyser blue, a color that's unique to the Wilderness line. And it's lifted a little bit higher up than a normal Outback. It's got lots of gold things on it. It's got more aggressive cladding. It's got matte black wheels. It's got Yokohama all-terrain tires. It's got different bumpers. It's got a lot of things that set it aside from just a normal Outback. We've got an Outback branded floor mat back here, and underneath that we have a full-sized Yokohama all-terrain spare tire. So that's pretty cool. That closes very quickly as well. Very sufficient. Top in the back seat here. Got some interesting looking floor mats here. Depictions of mountains. Lots of little crevices for your kids' vomit to get into when you're off-roading with them in the back seat. I've got a decent amount of room back here. It's a little claustrophobic, but it's not too bad. You know, I've got plenty of leg room back here, and the seat itself is pretty comfortable. In fact, these seats are made from a material that's waterproof. You can just hose them off when you're done, which will be perfect for Subaru families. Hose it off when you're all done, and all will be well. Let's move up to the front because there's not too much back here. We've got heated seats. We've got a couple USB... Hello? A couple USB ports. And then, of course, we've got our armrests with two cup holders. We've got a holder in the door panel here, too, for another drink. It's a little bit skinny. Put your bottle of Coke in there or something. All right, let's move up to the front. Actually, before we get in, let's not only count the Wilderness badges, but also the gold points on the car. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So we've got 11 on the outside. If you count the gold Outback badges, actually, that makes 13. 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and if you count these silly gold things, 20, 21. Lots of reminders on the car that it is indeed an Wilderness pack. Don't want, for what, well, you're never going to forget because you're the Subaru driver and you never forget things like that, but you don't want your passengers to forget. You don't want the people around you to forget. You want everyone at the campsite to know that you're better than them, and this car does a great job at that. Let's go ahead and start it up. Take a look at our massive vertical infotainment display here. Oh yes, I sure do agree. Let's plug my phone in for some wired Apple CarPlay because you want everyone to know that you have Apple CarPlay. You want your phone to be seen in the cubby here whilst you're driving along. I will say though, all jokes aside, they've done a really good job adapting the Apple CarPlay to this vertical screen. For example, in the Ford Explorer with the big large vertical screen, it's a tiny little square right at the top. This at least is fitted to the screen. You've got 3 rows of apps and it doesn't look too bad in my opinion. Up front, obviously we have the same material of seats. You can hose these babies off too. Little tags on here that say Subaru Wilderness. You can see them in your peripheral as you drive. Just an analog cluster here. We've got a little mini display in the middle there to let you know what's going on with all of your assists, your steering assist, your radar guided cruise control, and everything like that. Gold stitching here on the steering wheel as well, and on the shift boot, and on the seats, and here, and slightly on the door panels as well. We've got a black headliner with a little moonroof. Don't want a big panoramic one to shatter while you're doing some serious off-roading with this car. We have a electronic parking brake. We don't have a manual one, This whole sort of console setup is not my favorite. It's a little bit too tall and in my face. I think this car could maybe benefit from a push button or a dial shifter in this scenario. We don't have any, we've got a little storage cubby right here, but there's no pass-through or anything. Of course, because this car is all-wheel drive, there's probably a drive shaft running through here. Yeah, that's why we have all of this mess. But anyways, decently sized center console, another little storage point over here. But yeah, a couple of ridiculous things over here actually that I want to get out of the way before we're on the road so I don't crash. The climate control is a little bit mind of its own-ish, because if you set the temperature, it often makes the cabin quite a bit hotter. And that's why Charlie has me driving around with a thermometer in the cup holder, because while he was doing his fuel economy test yesterday on this car, he had his climate control set to 73, and he claimed that he was sweating profusely. So yesterday I drove home, climate control at 73. I only live about 10 minutes from our warehouse, little industrial complex here, and the car had already gotten up to 75 degrees. So if I would have kept going, it probably would have been somewhere in the 80s. But anyways, I've got that off of full auto today because it blows so hard that you wouldn't be able to hear what I'm saying. Also, I've got my heated seat on, right? Say I want to adjust my heated seat, right? Okay. Well, you'd think there'd be a little physical button here, like we have for our temperature up and down. That's very nice that we have physical buttons here to adjust our climate. But if you want to adjust your heated seat, you have to tap this, which takes you to another menu where you have to navigate to heater and then press that. Why can't I just have one button? Why do I have to go through a menu to adjust my heated seat? I don't understand why manufacturers have to make that so difficult. Why can't we just have physical buttons for things? I don't have a fan knob either. Sure, I've got buttons for my temperature, but what if I want to adjust the fan? Well, I've got to go in here. Then I've got to go here, and I can adjust my fan this way. The infotainment doesn't react very quickly either, so you have to really, really touch it like you mean it. Auto stop start, yep, you guessed it, that's in the infotainment as well. We're going to go ahead and turn that off. All of our vehicle settings, of course, are in the infotainment. That's normal. Our X mode settings, though that used to be a little button down here, like on the Subaru WRX at STI. In fact, it may be still, but you have to go into the infotainment to switch your drive modes. That's something I don't know that I've seen before. Usually there's a physical button to do drive modes, but anyways. All right. Well, enough of that. Let's take this thing out on the road and see what it's like to drive. Chunky shifter into drive. Let's hit the road. Unfortunately, I forgot to pack my Vibrams toe shoes to do this review, so I'm not going to get the full pedal feel here. Unmistakable whine from that CVT there. Yep, even though you've got the Wilderness, you've got the extra ground clearance, everything like that, Subaru is still nice enough to give you a CVT. How nice is that? I will say though, this thing is pretty quick. So we have a 4-cylinder boxer engine with 260 horsepower and 277 foot-pounds of torque. It is turbocharged, and being that it's a CVT, it often misjudges your speed, and sometimes the throttle response and just overall throttle tuning can be, yeah, you see, it acts like it always wants to speed, and I don't quite understand that. Also, since it is a turbocharged engine with a CVT, when you're just rolling along at 1,000 RPM and you have your foot on the gas, the car is slowly and constantly accelerating. Charlie's fiance Alyssa one time got a speeding ticket in a Subaru Outback because of what I just said. What I don't quite understand is why give all of this advanced off-roadiness and keep the CVT. I don't really understand that, because I wouldn't be making fun of this car quite as much as I am if I had something like an 8-speed automatic in here that was actually like normal. I just got back from California driving the Honda Passport Trail Sport, which kind of follows the same philosophy of this car, like a soft roader type thing that you can drive around town. You use it a couple times a year to go down the rocky, rutty trail of a state park. you want to have that just a little bit extra, okay? I understand that philosophy. The Passport Trail Sport was great. We took it off-road. It did fantastic, you know, and that car doesn't even sit any higher than a normal Passport. It's insanely, insanely capable, okay? This car, I'd imagine, can do even more. We've got all-terrain tires as opposed to like a highway terrain tire. We've got skid plates. We've got 9.5 inches of ground clearance, okay? It says Wilderness everywhere. It's got gold towing points. So why do I have a CVT? I'm not interested in having a CVT in a car like this. It's just, why not give me something special over a normal Outback? You know, I think the Subaru driver would appreciate that as well, feeling more special over just a normal Outback. Isn't that the whole point of this car? I don't know. Oh, yes, that's another thing. So the actual lane keep assist and collision avoidance system often gets confused. I was getting on the highway this morning on just a very normal entrance ramp, and the car freaked out, completely flashed red on our heads-up display and slammed on the brakes on an entrance ramp. Luckily, I had nobody behind me. The ride was a little bit bumpy there, and I feel like I heard it initiate traction control. That was strange. Luckily, there was nobody behind me on said entrance ramp, but if there would have been, that would have been interesting. So, oftentimes can get confused, but it actually works pretty well as a lane keep and steering assist system. Is it on? Yes, it is. Okay. So this will actually steer for you. It's not just a lane keep assist. We have a steering assist here, but it only works when cruise control is on. So it's not like a Hyundai where you can just use it whenever you want. You have to have cruise control going for it to work. It's got to take a second to calibrate here. There it goes. Okay. I usually don't love systems that are like that because sometimes you like to just have it on when you're going down the road. Like when I'm in a Hyundai or a Genesis, I just leave it on and it drives for me in most situations where I don't want to use the cruise control. But if you're okay having cruise control on and pretty much only using that system on the highway, then it works very well. The adaptive cruise seems to work pretty well too. I was driving on the highway quite a bit yesterday and it seemed to work just fine. The all-terrain tires as well are not super loud. They're of course slightly louder than if you were to have just a normal Outback, but they're not screaming like a lifted Jeep Wrangler or anything that extreme. All right, let's go ahead and try out this entrance ramp here. I'm going to try out manual mode. I have not done that yet. Let's see how this CVT reacts to being in manual. Woo. Oh, okay. I feel like I'm at the ragged edge here. Oh, at 50. Oh. CVT simulating gear changes is hilarious, but I'm not going to give this car any grief for handling quite poorly around there because that's not the point of the car. So then what about price? Well, the Subaru Outback Wilderness starts around 36 grand. This one is around 40 grand. And all things considered, I feel like that's honestly a pretty fair price. Subarus can be expensive, but I honestly expected this thing to be a little bit more expensive. They give you the wheels, the tires, the skid plates, the extra ground clearance. I thought they'd be asking like 45 grand for this car. So, a little bit cheaper than I thought. Would I buy it? Absolutely not. Should it exist? Probably, because I think Subaru is going to do really well with this car. I think it fits their whole vibe just as a company. I think it represents them really well. So I'm sure people will buy it. I think that also the Wilderness line is going to expand. Man, that'd be cool if they gave us a Wilderness WRX that was like lifted up with rally lights and stuff. That would be pretty neat. I think just driving this car around on the street, it's fine. The ride quality is actually great. I have no complaints about the ride quality. The only thing I don't really like about it is the throttle response and weird throttle tuning. I've had some really weird jerky takeoffs in the car that are a little bit unsettling. And also the couple of weird screw-ups I've had from the driver assist systems, not really my favorite. All right, everyone, well, that's going to wrap up our drive today of the 2022 Subaru Outback Wilderness. I think we need to do the speed bump test with this car. It's probably the extent of off-roading that most of these cars will see. Oh yeah. Went over that at the same speed in a Buick Envision, and I hit the bump stops in the suspension, so it's nice to see that this is elevated above a car such as that. Gotta get a thumbnail for you guys. All right. Let's do one last little walk around of this thing, and that'll be it for us today. What do you all think? You think it's a little bit too much, a little bit too gaudy? I think for their target market, it's absolutely perfect. And all jokes aside, again, I do like the geyser blue. And I don't mind the wheels and tires either. All right, everyone. Well, this has been the Subaru Outback Wilderness. This has been Christopher Brower with Daily Motor. And as always, drive on.